Hey, how are we doing? It's Nico at Deltastring.com, and I was editing a video that I did some recording yesterday, and I haven't published it yet. So if you're watching this and it's newly published, then this video won't be up yet. I'm going to do it the other way around. But I was talking about the Zendesk CX Trends report. They do this annually, and I was looking at last year's report and seeing, did these things come to pass? Do we now think that was good? What's true now? What isn't true now? And looking at this year's report through the prism of, was last year's report good and accurate? And if there was one thing from last year's report that Zendesk went big on that I feel wasn't really the right way to go, they were talking a lot about voice AI and about bots and automated processes running off the back of spoken word conversations with customers, right? The fourth of the predictions on this list is voice AI gains ground as the preferred channel for complex issues. And I think you know where I'm going with this. I don't feel like this has really come to pass. There are some limited applications of voice AI. Personally, I find it very, very frustrating, and I'm looking to get to a human ASAP if I'm finding I'm talking to a simulated voice of some sort. They had a strong sense that he'll be phoning in, talking to an AI agent rather than typing at an AI agent or interacting with them in some other way, and happy to have their query resolved by a synthesized voice rather than an actual human or an IVR, right? Now, I don't think that's happened. I don't think that's happened at all, really. I think there are specific businesses that are doing that, and they're doing that pretty okay, actually, some of them. But by and large, that hasn't come to pass. And I think that's for a range of reasons. And I go into a lot of detail about that over here. And then I see something, literally while I'm editing this, I see something that really changes this in a big way. And I think it's worth talking about. So the key thing I think that's been a barrier to uptake of sort of voice-led AI conversations to resolution via talking to a bot has been that people really don't like talking to these things. It's quite frustrating, and we know it's frustrating because we've all given things like Siri and Alexa a go and found them to be basically, I don't know, they're kind of like, how we had these things in our cars like 10 years ago. I mean, it's in the car, right? But you never press the button, do you? You never actually want to say, navigate me to this place, because it's annoying. You'd use your phone instead, and you'd tap it instead, right? You'd find the place on Google Maps rather than fish around on your phone. So, through voice, and that's been true for a good while now. And the iPhone is the one of the most popular devices, and we all carry a phone of some sort with us all the time, basically. And everyone has tried these things and found them to be, I don't know, frustrating, right? Frustrating, I think, is the right way to describe it. But Apple have today, like I just saw it, said they're going to be revamping Siri using the kind of foundation layer, which is using a model from Google, using their Gemini, what they're calling foundation layer. And that will be for the on-device processing rather than, my understanding is it'll still have the handoff to ChatGPT if you're asking something that requires that level of processing and thinking, right? And this is going to make a big difference. So if you have been someone who's maybe tried this sort of thing, maybe you're quite forward with your, in the tech world. Someone like me, I had a first generation smartwatch when they first had their Android watches and things like that. Tried them, thought, is this going to be the future? I needed to evaluate it, right? People who work in tech, we want to know what's up and coming, but we also need to support, what's still lagging behind, but still in heavy use, right? And so, I mean, for example, you'll see behind me various machines of various flavors of operating system, and each one has all the browsers on it. We've got to be aware of the different ways that people get in touch. I've got a stack of phones of various brands and ages, things like that, because you've got to make sure that things you're building are going to work for people getting in touch however they're getting in touch, right? And also testing things against accessibility features. So if you're building out a help center, an application, a chatbot, then you've got to try it, with all the different accessibility options and thinking about color blindness, things like that. And I actually had a really good conversation with a director at Zapier about using alternative input methods. So for a while, I used all different keyboards on my phones. I used one called Dasher, where it's you control it kind of by the orientation rather than tapping on it. Quite configurable, and that gives kind of a different perspective on using technology if you need some assistance or have different requirements, right? I actually used a Morse code keyboard for a bit, which is super crazy because it just has one button. You just tap, 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 tap. That's a bad way to do things, but you can text people from your pocket. Pretty handy. And I haven't been able to do that since I had a Nokia 30 something or other, right? Anyway, so if Apple are going to be integrating Google's foundation layer into Siri, then what does that mean? Now, for me, I think that means that Siri is going to have better processing of your natural language requests. At the moment, it feels like you're bumping your head against the wall. It's like when you play a text adventure, like these old text adventure games. You play the Hitchhiker's Guide game or something like that. Then you're typing over and over, like get sword, pick up sword, put sword in bag. What have you? Trying to find the right syntax that works. And we've all got real used to doing that with Siri and Alexa and stuff, of going turn on thing, start thing, do thing, right? And it's just really annoying. But if they're going to have this better layer of natural language processing from Google, then that might be the thing that moves us into being happier to use voice-based interfaces. Now, that's always going to be something I think we're going to do in private. I was walking down the road yesterday and someone behind me having the loudest phone conversation. I think Dom Jolly really showed that we, right back at the end of the 90s, we were real sick of someone walking behind with a big phone, right? That was 99 probably, Very Happy TV. Showing my age. But what I think we're going to see is that if Apple are revamping the way that Siri does with natural language stuff, a lot of people will give it another go. Some people might find that it's quite good, and that might give a bit of momentum towards having these conversational voice interactions with AI. Now, would I bet the house on it? No, because there are lots of situations where you don't want to do that. Now, it's something I would use in the car maybe while driving. The other thing is those Ray-Ban Meta glasses, right? Talking to those, that's okay when there's no one around, I guess. Sometimes it's going to feel a bit weird and you want to kind of use a different interface of some sort, but by and large, I think these things are starting to be a bit less horrible to use, a bit less frustrating to use, and people who try and be near the cutting edge are going to be giving it another shot, and that can potentially mean, in over the coming months, we're going to see a change there. Now, I don't think that voice AI is going to eliminate your need to have actual people on the phone, because for me, when I get in touch by the phone, it's because I've got two things happening. I've got something that I need to have solved quickly, right? I don't want to send an email and think this could be a week, will I ever hear back from them? I want to get someone on the phone and go, right, let's get this sorted. The other thing I need when I make a phone call is I need to feel like someone knows that this has been a real pain for me, right? If I'm calling up and going, hey, this thing isn't working, it's because I want someone to go, oh God, no, that really should be working. I'm really sorry, right? That's the main thing that I get from calling up support services, and you're never going to get that from ChatGPT because it's never going to feel right. And people who've used, Claude or what have you, I think I've got something open up there. People who've used Claude know that when it apologises, it's really frustrating. It fundamentally feels very insincere, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I deleted the wrong folder of all your stuff, and you're like, you're not sorry, are you? You know your software, right? You're not sorry in the same way that the washing machine isn't sorry if it eats one of my socks, right? It's just a thing that has happened where a machine has been, been given a task to do and it hasn't completed properly. But what are we going to see over the coming months? Has this changed my view on voice AI? I think it will pick up a bit. Will it be the future? It'll be the future for a while. But long term, I think when we're having voice conversations, it's always going to be because we want to hear some empathy on the other end, and we want to demonstrate that this is a priority issue for us. And if we're going to have to talk to a bot, then I would rather do it with my thumbs. It's as simple as that. I'd rather do that with my thumbs And I think that's probably true of most people. But this is a big development, and I think it merited its own conversation. What do you think? If you disagree, if you're implementing loads of voice AI stuff for your clients, if you're in a similar game to me, or if you're kind of using a lot of services that have these things, then tell me all about it. I want to try it out. Try out what you're working on. Try out what you're finding to be good, um, because yeah, we want to understand kind of what works for different businesses, different people. But for me, I think it's a bit of a red herring. I think it's going to be a distraction. I think it's going to pull us away from what the actual thing that we need to achieve is, which is greater automation. So people being able to solve their own problems in a natural language way, which is my thing hasn't arrived, and then be able to identify it was this order, it was that, and have this really step-by-step process automation. And you can have a GPT or whatever layer on top of that to make that more natural language, more conversational, but ultimately the process needs to be step by step by step. And you can have that process designed through seeing how people interact on these things, but it will still need to be a defined process rather than just some AI freestyling, because we know that can go horribly, right? And then the other side of it is, the priority service, the luxury end of service. If you're a top tier customer, or if you're, trying to be a brand that's differentiating itself in terms of the quality proposition, then, human people who can actually tell you, I'm really sorry. Yeah, let's me personally as a human take an individual look and prioritize your precise situation, and let's relate to this. Let's say, other people have had this, thanks so much for raising it. It gives us a good opportunity to improve. And having conversations like that, for me, is always going to be the premium option, whereas automation is always going to feel budget. And for a comparison as well, think of the nicest restaurant you can imagine. Someone's come over there and they're talking you through what the ingredients are. Think of the absolute budget eating option. There's a screen and you tap it and something pops out of a machine, right? So yeah, I think we've come to understand that the human interaction is the luxury part of whatever it is, of your service, of your product. And so voice AI is always going to, by definition, feel like a cop-out. But let's see what happens. Good luck to Apple, I suppose, the world's most cautious and wealthy organization. Cheers.